Welcome to our Friday live stream, This Week in Cannabis News, powered by Dutchie. Each Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we'll deliver an overview of this week's cannabis news. It's quick, it's comprehensive, and it sends you into the weekend as a more informed cannabis professional, and it's all made possible by our friends at Dutchie. You can find and connect with the team at Dutchie through a link in the show notes. For now, let's get to it. Did Trump squander an opportunity on cannabis? That was the question Cultivated's editor-in-chief, Jeremy Burke, posed this week in our newsletter. That's because during Wednesday's address to Congress, Trump touted his actions to get Mark Fogel released from a Russian prison for possessing 17 grams of cannabis. He was brought home to the U.S. by the Trump administration where, in many states, he could theoretically be thrown in jail on those very same charges. Jeremy further noted, quote, Trump could have pointed out his success in freeing Russian prisoner Mark Fogel and shared how he planned to encourage his administration and Congress to come up with common sense cannabis reform. It was a perfect opportunity to take a political win and show the voting public that he would act on a widely popular and bipartisan issue. It seems telling that he didn't mention it at all, end quote. A link to Jeremy's full newsletter is in the show notes. We'll fly across the pond for this one. Legalization in the UK could add £1.5 billion to the Treasury through tax revenue and cost savings from enforcement. That according to a new report from Transform Drug Policy, which is a nonprofit. The report also found that legalized cannabis could create up to 15,500 jobs, depending on the regulations implemented, and would displace 80% of the illicit market within 5 years, which is based on data from Canada. Again, more on this story in our show notes. Along with our friends at Greenflower, Alabama State University has announced that they will become the first historically black college and university to offer a cannabis certificate program. Now, Alabama doesn't have a major cannabis industry yet, but preparing college and university students for the jobs of the cannabis future always gets an A in our book. Teen cannabis use in the U.S. is declining to record low levels. That according to a nationwide Monitoring the Future survey. That's true even as more states around the country choose to legalize and regulate sales. There is more in our newsletter, including this graph, which you can certainly dive into. And finally, one fun thing this week. Music genius Billy Strings had a funny moment caught on camera. At the very moment he was being asked about how he stays relaxed as he plays, his vape pen fell from his lap. It is a great moment. Have a watch.
How do you stay relaxed when you look so relaxed when you're doing it?
There's your answer.
Thank you, Billy Strings, for that laugh as we end this week. That's it for This Week in Cannabis News, powered by Dutchie. We'd love for you to follow us on LinkedIn, and when you do, you'll see that we have a series of webinars coming up that we think you'll be interested in. Noteworthy, on Thursday next week, we'll be launching our second webinar with Joe Rossi, now with Modern Advocacy, titled Expert Insight on New York's Cannabis Licensing Deals. There is more on that on our LinkedIn page. And while you're there, you can check out a replay of our webinar from yesterday, which was called Choosing the Right Cannabis Banking Partners, that we presented with our partners and friends at Shield Compliance. Check back next Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on Cultivated's LinkedIn page and on our YouTube channel. Be sure to get our newsletter and inbox every morning by visiting, of course, cultivated.news. And another thank you to our partners at Dutchie who make this show possible every week. A link to find out more about Dutchie is in the show notes. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. Have a good and safe weekend.